We are back again, yo, chill. Gonna continue on with our nostalgic deep dives. This time we're dumping into another personal favorite from my childhood. I had like the fucking VHS of this one. I think, there was a collection called Decade in Diapers. I had that one, and then I had Rugrats in Paris, and then Rugrats. What was the first movie? I think it was just the Rugrats movie. And I can remember it vividly just because those orange VHS tapes and then the freaking case container that they came in, the smell of that plastic, I swear, it's like unforgettable. It's unmatched. I was having plastic fumes back then. You open up a fresh VHS tape, Nickelodeon case. It smells better than a new car. It's crazy. But yeah, we're gonna be going into a deep dive of the Rugrats. It's a quick drop down of what happened to the actual show. Obviously, eventually got the all grown up adaptation, so it'll be interesting to see what happened in between here and there with the original shows and then grown ups coming in. We've got a deep dive here by Saber Spark. What ruined Rugrats? The Untold Drama. Let's take a look. See.
When it comes to Nickelodeon, most people view SpongeBob SquarePants as the most important show that was ever on the network. Now, there's actually some truth to that. But before there was SpongeBob, there was another show that carried that mantle, a cartoon that would break ground for Nickelodeon and gave them a big push as a network for animated content. Rugrats, one of the most successful shows from the 1990s. It was a primetime juggernaut that was super popular with both kids and adults. It made millions of dollars in merchandise and was the third longest running Nick show, right behind SpongeBob and the Fairly OddParents. This pop culture icon was a big hit on the network, and it can be argued that Rugrats paved the way for the future of Nicktoons. But despite its massive levels of success, it all came crumbling down. By the early 2000s, the franchise had run out of steam and was put to rest in 2004. Why was that? How did such a popular show that was the pride of Nickelodeon die out? It's a question that I never really even asked myself. I mean, I grew up with this show. I was the main demographic it was targeting, and I watched its rise, peak, and downfall, but I never questioned why it happened. Well, the answer is very surprising. Many people assume it was the later seasons and the introduction of new characters that led to a drop in quality, and there's some truth to that. But the main reasons actually lie within internal conflict. The people who made Rugrats did not get along with one another, and the level of drama and tension between these creators even led to a legal dispute.
Angelica, what's going on here?
I'm suing you.
Whoa. So wait, so the creator and co-creator didn't mess with each other?
There's a lot more to this story than you think. So, we're gonna take a closer look at what ruined Rugrats.
Okay.
Our story begins in the early 1990s with Nickelodeon. Around this time, the network was under the command of Geraldine LeBourne. She and her team had a vision for Nick, to make it the first children's network. Part of this plan was introducing original animated shows that stood out from the typical Saturday lineup. Cartoons that were creator-driven and did not just exist to sell toys. Many pilots were created and pitched to Nickelodeon, but only 3 would go on to be Nicktoons: Doug, Ren Stimpy, and Rugrats. The concept for the show was pretty simple. It's about babies who would talk whenever parents would leave the room. They would go on adventures, and the audience could see the world through the eyes of an infant. There were three people who were primarily responsible for the creation of Rugrats: Arlene Klasky, Gabor Supo, whose first name I'm pretty sure I'm saying wrong. It's Hungarian, and I think I'm saying it incorrectly. We'll just call him Supo from this point on. And last but not least, Paul Germain. Klasky and Supo were actually married around the time and founded an animation.
I was gonna say, like, what, were they married or something? Because I'm like, ain't no way, like, I mean, I guess you can be put on a project with somebody you don't know and just not like them. But I feel like that's usually in the case of, like, when it comes to, like, the actual actors and actresses and stuff. Usually, like, the creators are usually people who, work well together to, make something. But I mean, at the same time, if they can make something good and not necessarily, I guess it doesn't necessarily matter if they, well, I mean, it might still matter if they get along or not, but who's to say? Who am I to say, I guess?
Studio called Klasky Supo. It would go on to create quite a few shows for Nick, such as Rocket Power, Ah, Real Monsters, As Told by Ginger, and The Wild Thornberrys.
All on the list, by the way.
But it was Rugrats that would put them on the map. Now, this wasn't the first time that these three had worked together. A few years prior, this trio helped to produce the Simpsons shorts from the Tracy Ullman Show. They even stayed on for the first 3 seasons of the official Simpsons. But Rugrats would be their show, and it was Klasky herself who came up with it. She was pregnant around this time, so the concept of the show was something that was personal to her. What about a show about babies? That was her idea, and she passed it off to Paul Germain, who refined it. Now, remember this guy's name. It's going to be a big part of the story as we move on. But Nickelodeon loved the concept. They signed them up and contracted the studio to create 65 episodes. There was Tommy Pickles.
Okay, so it wasn't the husband and wife that fell out, but the mysterious C partner.
The brave and adventurous main character. His friends, Phil and Lil, the twins who delivered on that gross-out humor. Chucky, the nervous wreck who was always afraid of everything. And then the queen of mean herself.
He wasn't afraid of crashing out on Tommy, look.
What you did, it's all ruined!
What's all ruined, Chucky?
The Bogo Block Village! The police car is at the fire station, the fire truck's at the airport, the airplane's on top of the restaurant, people are hanging out of windows, buildings are moved, and you've completely taken apart City Hall!
Chucky, in my house, we do stuff like this all the time.
My house, my house, my house. Let me tell you something, Tommy. This isn't my house, it's my house. And when you're in my house, sometimes you gotta do things my way.
It was only when he was at Tommy's house when he was really afraid of everything. When Chucky at home, Chucky in charge. God damn it.
Angelica, Tommy's cousin who was always bullying the babies. There were also a bunch of side characters. Real talk, Stu is my spirit animal.
What are you doing?
Making chocolate pudding.
It's 4 o'clock in the morning. Why on earth are you making chocolate pudding?
Because I've lost control of my life.
The show had a talented staff of writers that even included the future creator of Hey Arnold, Craig Bartlett. The team did their job and delivered on the 65 episodes, and the studio ceased production. On Sunday morning, August 11th, 1991, Rugrats made its debut to the world. Now, at first, Ren and Stimpy were the talk of the town, but Rugrats performed modestly and would even go on to win a Daytime Emmy for Outstanding Animated Program. But a change was made that would make Rugrats an overnight sensation. Herb Scannell, whose name I'm probably saying wrong too, was in charge of programming at Nick, and he made the decision to broadcast Rugrats every day in the evening time. This was a primetime slot, and it made all the difference. This decision was key and unlocked the popularity of Rugrats, and having 65 episodes allowed Nickelodeon to air reruns and have a different episode air every day for 2 months. Rugrats was like the Teen Titans Go of its time, and the ratings went through the roof. Due to its success, Nickelodeon approached Klasky and Supo and asked them to create more episodes, and their answer was yes.
Okay.
Wait a second, Klasky, Supo, where's Paul? The Rugrats franchise would grow and grow and grow. There were movies, merchandise, parade floats, and even spin-offs. The show even broke ground with an episode about Passover, which was a first for children animation.
Now I've seen everything.
Nickelodeon had finally found its big hit, and a show to represent the network. Klasky and Supo were also flying high, and they were the main look of Nickelodeon during the 90s. But Rugrats' success was not going to last forever. And funny enough, it was events that happened before its success that would lead to its eventual downfall. Rugrats was Nickelodeon's juggernaut during the 90s, but its popularity began to decline around the late 90s and early 2000s. So why did this happen? What caused the fall of Rugrats? A lot of people believe it has something to do with the introduction of new characters, such as Tommy's brother Dill, or Chucky's stepsister, Kimmy. And there's actually some truth to that. There was a shift in the overall tone of the show, but the reason why that happened was due to fighting between the show creators and the writing staff, primarily Arlene Klasky and Paul Germain. Remember how I told you all to remember this guy's name? Well, here's why. Klasky and Paul did not see eye to eye when it came to Rugrats. Klasky, for example, was in favor of the babies acting more like children, and was on the record saying that certain episodes had them being too adult, such as The Trial. To her, this was a show about babies, so they should consistently act like babies. There are even rumors that Klasky was so obsessed with the characters that she herself would mimic their baby talk while talking to other writers.
Have fun with Grandpa Tommy.
Paul, on the other hand, was in favor of doing, according to him, intelligent stories for intelligent children. To be the Simpsons of kids shows that was plot-driven and featured well-developed characters. And one character in particular became the main battleground between Klasky and Germain, and can be attributed as the main reason why the show fell apart. Yep, Little Miss Sass herself. Klasky hated Angelica, and she's on the record saying this. The character was never part of her original creation, and it was instead introduced by Paul. He thought that having an antagonist in the series would help it out, and was even inspired by Paul from some bully from his childhood. But to Klasky, all she saw was a bully. Someone who was cruel to the innocent babies. There was one episode in particular that rubbed Klasky the wrong way, and it was called Barbecue Story.
I think he might have been on to something as far as like it might have added more to the show with her being there, actually. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like of all his ideas, that might have been the one right there. But I guess I could understand on her perspective as well. She wanted just a show about babies, and now you putting this kid in here bullying the babies for no reason. And, like, she was pregnant at the time when she made it as well, so I know she feels very deeply about this probably. So can't even be mad
In
at
it,
it.
Angelica throws Tommy's ball over the fence, and Klasky complained, saying, quote, "How would I feel if my kids were watching that?" There was also beef with Angelica saying, "You dumb babies," and how both Klasky and the network didn't like that, but they ultimately gave up on fighting it.
Dumb babies.
Paul and the writing staff didn't see Angelica as just a bully, and instead wanted to explore why she acts out, to show the viewers the reasons why Angelica is the way she is. According to my sources, Supo often acted as the mediator between his wife Klasky and Paul and the writing staff.
Because he was probably like, I mean, they are kind of talking from sense. Like, you can't necessarily, because these are true emotions that people feel, and like there are gonna be bullies in people's lives. Like, that's just gonna be unavoidable. So I get like you don't necessarily want to portray that in your show, and it's not like they were justifying it or even like glorifying or anything. Like, yeah, I mean, Angelica's the most dislikable person on the entire show most times. So And then that's why you have like the good contrast with like Susie Carmichael, who's the same age, but more proper and upstanding when it comes to the babies, and trying to help Angelica along still along the way. But like, yeah, having that friction and like that actual like outlet for those negative emotions, and viewpoint of how bad that and toxic that can be, when used for bad, obviously, which it will eventually be. So I don't know, it makes sense in that sense, but like I said, it's her creation as well, so what can you say in that regard? But I mean, they're all co-creators, I guess, in that sense too, so it all depends on, I mean, she created the actual idea, I guess, so at the end of the day, I feel like, yeah, whatever she says goes. But when you bring it to a network and you have a whole team of people now working with it, I guess you have to have some sort of leeway, give and take.
From the looks of it, he ultimately favored good writing, so Paul and his team usually got it their way. And this part's crazy to me. The writing staff even took shots at Klasky and her parenting style. In the show, Tommy's mom Dee Dee is obsessed with this guy named Dr. Lipschitz. He's some kind of baby psychologist who's a professional and has all the information of how to raise a kid the right way. Well, guess who also was a big fan of those kinds of doctors? Yep.
Lipschitz knows more about being a mommy than anyone in the world.
Chucky, ever since I was little, I always heard my mommy say, the Lipschitz says this, or the Lipschitz says that, and I never knew what the Lipschitz was.
Klasky and Supo actually got divorced in 1995, though they claim it's due to private reasons, and not the show itself. They continue to work professionally, but it does make you wonder if Supo's decision to back Jermaine was one of the reasons behind the divorce. Guess we'll never know. But in 1993, the team accomplished their goal: 65 episodes. After that, Paul quit and left the studio, taking with him the majority of the writers too. There was even a legal dispute that ended with a settlement, and how they all agreed that Klasky and Supo can't discuss or share why the team left. They straight up took their animosity to court.
I strongly advise you to settle this matter out of court.
A settlement?
He's right, Charlotte. Let's just end this thing as painlessly as possible.
But despite the turbulent tension around this time, magic was about to happen for Rugrats. Due to the programming changes made to the schedule, Rugrats exploded overnight. It became one of the most popular shows on television, with millions of viewers per week. And after a 2-year break, the show went back into production, but this time without Paul and the other writers. Klasky and Supo earned a lot of praise around this time and claimed to be the creative geniuses behind the success of the show, effectively leaving Paul's name out of the picture. Now, Paul was able to land on his feet and went on to work for Disney. There, he created Recess and Lloyd in Space. A new writing staff was brought.
Okay, so like, again, see, like, I don't think either one was wrong, especially if he went off to make Lloyd in Space and Recess, two of like the most well-written cartoons of like those ages and everything. They just had like a different viewpoint of like what the writing style of this specific show should have been. And since it was her baby, she really felt personal about it. So I can't even blame it. And the fact that they won and everything, in the face of the producers, writers, and a co-creator.
Brought in to continue the production on Rugrats, but it did not have the same edge or charm as the original team. Despite that, it went on for 9 seasons and ran until August of 2004. But it was plain to see that the magic was missing, and that was a big reason why Rugrats came to an end. No, that's not to say it didn't have its moments, but there was a notable decline that only continued to get worse as time went on. And finally, as if a nail in the coffin, a certain yellow sponge arrived and took the world by storm.
I'm ready! I'm ready! I'm ready! I'm ready! I'm ready! I'm ready!
SpongeBob became the next big thing in the early 2000s, and was even bigger than Rugrats. Also, and this is just me speculating, but it's possible that the kids who initially watched Rugrats outgrew it and saw it as something for babies.
Ironic.
At the end of the day, the thing that ruined Rugrats was a writing staff that couldn't see eye to eye with the show creators. Klasky was firmly grounded with what she believed was the best for the show, despite the suggestions from Paul Germain and the rest of the writing staff. It was a power struggle that ultimately led to Rugrats' demise. But what I find so fascinating about this, though, is that the thing that led to the success of Rugrats was ruined before the show even became popular. It's such a bizarre situation, because usually it's franchise fatigue, or network meddling, or jumping the shark that usually ruins the popularity of a series. But for Rugrats, it was losing Paul Germain and the writing staff. It lost what made it successful before it was even successful. I guess one could say that the show was killed in the crib. Despite the decline in the series, Nickelodeon owes a debt of gratitude to Rugrats. It was a cultural phenomenon and was a big stepping stone for Nick. Their objective back then was to find creator-driven series that could allow the network to stand out from the competition, and Rugrats delivered. It was truly unique and one of a kind. And funny enough, these babies are supposed to make a comeback in 2021. According to Nickelodeon's Instagram account and this Variety article, there's a movie in the works and a TV series to follow. But something about this confuses me. According to the IMDb page and this article, Klasky, Supo, and Jermaine are going to return as executive producers to work on the revivals. Now, nothing has been 100% confirmed, and this could just be an error. And truth be told, with all of the drama and bad blood from the 90s, it would be very surprising to see Klasky and Jermaine working together again. Maybe they buried the hatchet and are talking once more. Or maybe Nickelodeon is paying them a stupid amount of money, and that's good enough. There's really no way of knowing until we get an official confirmation. Regardless of the situation, we're going to be seeing Rugrats return both on the big screen and on the television. Will it be just as successful as it once was almost 30 years ago? Well, only time will tell. Oh no.
To a live action.
Hey guys, Saber here, and just wanted to thank you all for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like, and post a comment down below. Also, a big shout out to my friend Jim, who helped me to write and research this video. He also does a bunch of movies and cartoon reviews, so go check him out. Alright, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.
That's super cool. That was again Saber Spark. Oh my god, yeah. Like I said, Rugrats was dope. It's crazy to see that, yeah, it was, like you said, you come to find out, like, these shows that you watched when you were younger were having all these issues in the background that you wouldn't even heard of. Yeah, the fact that the co-creators had that whole falling out, and then due to the fallout, as soon as they were coming popular, is when the quality starts falling down. But I mean, even with that, they said they got 9 episodes, or got all the way up, 9 seasons, got all the way up to 2004 before it was finally canceled. So I mean, still kudos to that. And then hold on, I've got to confirm if they did the reboot together, because I'm pretty sure the reboot did happen. Created. So wait. Yeah, no, they did all come back for the reboot. That's crazy. Okay. Oh wow. Okay. That's wild. So they were like, look, we were doing the best when it was all of us, so let's just get the old squad back together. That's crazy. But I guess they can't be mad at it. But yeah, no, that's the Rugrats. Like I said, that holds a special place. I wish I still had those VHS and everything from when I was younger, for sure. But yeah, Decade in Diapers and all that. The Rugrats movie, the Rugrats in Paris and everything. Some of the best times for sure. That show was hilarious. Uh, you want your num nums? Oh my gosh. I swear. No, I actually I no which one of them wrote the Rugrats the movie, because as far as crazy dare to go, like you want them just to be babies, the fucking movie, they get lost in the woods, and like Tommy has to like lock in and try to get them out of there, and he almost like beats Dale at one point. Like it gets crazy.
I need some blankie too. You think it's funny? Feeling was right. You're a bad, naughty baby, and you're never gonna get any better. I'm through being your big brother. I don't want my responsibility no more. You want monkeys? Oh, okay, I'll give you monkeys. You'll have a monkey mommy, and a monkey daddy, and a monkey brother. I should have let my friends take you back to the obstacle, but no, I said. He didn't mean it, I said. He was only playing. Well, I was wrong. Now I don't even have friends. You want monkeys? And monkeys want bananas. So, everybody gets what they want.
This was in 1998, so let's see. Was this before he? Based on the Rugrats produced by. No, it's just them, Klasky and so it was just them and that, and they went that. I mean, I guess it's a movie. They needed it to be a little more than just the movie for that to be what she was complaining about. Oh, that's crazy. All right, well, that was the Rugrats dive. We're gonna move along here. Get you in a second, YouTube. That was it. All right, but continue on with our nostalgic deep dives. We're gonna be diving into some just nostalgic childhood animations, cartoons. Just try to get a deep dive of just what happened to these shows after while we were growing up, because as obviously shows ended when we were younger, but like I felt like either I missed out on some of the endings on certain shows, or there ends up being like more to the story than, oh yeah, this is just the story we wanted to tell and that was it. Like, no, there's usually something going on behind the scenes with like some producer didn't agree with this, that, and the third, or something with like money issues or something going on in that regard. So it's always interesting to see that other side of things, especially of all these beloved shows that I watched as a kid. You come to find out that like these people were struggling just to keep like the lights on when it comes to like any of those like PBS shows and all those public access TV shows. Obviously versus like a lot of shows where they get all these budgets from like Netflix and everything now. When it came to like public educational TV, especially, they were fighting like tooth and nail to get any type of budget just to, keep their stuff going. And they found some of the most creative ways to, save a buck and be creative at that. That's why some of my favorite shows coming up, like, what was it, Out of the Box? They literally, I feel like it was all bare bones, like showing like how to use your imagination while also, using what you have access to, yada, yada, yada. So yeah, We're going to be diving in today to a couple different shows from my childhood with some quick little deep dive, see, what happened to them, what's going on, or how they ended, for better or for worse. Yeah. So the first one we're going to check out here is going to be Why Recess Was the Perfect Kids Show by Full Fat Video.
Recess is a masterpiece of children's television. That's undeniable. Created by Paul Germain and Joe Anzalaba here, often credited simply as Paul and Joe, Recess followed the exploits of 6 children as they navigated school and the trials and tribulations of growing older. When I was a kid, I used to love Recess. I'd seen every episode numerous times, could tell you most of the iconic moments, and had a mental list of all my favourite episodes. But as I grew...
No, Recess was definitely one of the shows that I watched a lot as a kid. That opening, dun, 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 dun. Not a word spoken, but everything is understood. Randall being the biggest snitch in the world, like that was probably one of my first real how I felt like that was one of my first ops in my life, like one of the first real nemesis. Wasn't even in the show, but every time this dude was out snitching on everybody, I always felt some type of way. Of course, what was the biggest snake? I mean, but he was always upfront about it, so you can't even say he was trying to. I mean, I guess you could say he was trying to be sneaky about it, but everybody knew he was the snitch, or whatever. But yeah, what was it? There was the king of the playground and everything. It was always just a good time. They just didn't. I don't know. And like I said, it's always the nostalgic viewpoint of it all as well. But I just always felt like they just don't make shows like that as much anymore as well, because there were just so many hits when I was younger. There's still a few out here and there, but I just feel like they're far more sprinkled.
As I grew older, I'd sort of compartmentalised it in my brain as one of those shows that I used to love. Something that I looked back on fondly as a child, but didn't really want to revisit as an adult. I hadn't really had any real inclination to revisit the show seriously, other than for a bit of a nostalgia kick. But upon recently getting Disney Plus and seeing the show in the service's library, I decided to give it another go. I mean, I'd exhausted most of the shows during lockdown, so why not revisit an old favourite? As I began to rewatch the show from the start, I realised that my memory had deceived me. Recess wasn't just a kids' cartoon, it was a cut above other cartoons of its time. It was smart, funny and well plotted, but most importantly, it took its audience seriously.
No, Recess was literally straight up, not even on the PBS public educational style. They would tell full on plots almost akin to the way Static Shock and that would follow some heavier topics, while it wasn't obviously versed on racial issues and such, those serious natures, because this is still what Disney, right? It's early Disney at that, but at the same time, early Disney, you had what was the Color Friendship, stuff like that. So they dabbled, they dipped.
The best cartoons from my childhood often granted me a means of escapism. They took us to fantastical worlds filled with outlandish characters and even more outlandish plots. But Recess was somewhat of an outlier, choosing to focus on a world that was extremely familiar to its audience and portrayed the issues they faced in a heightened, albeit emotionally realistic sense. In essence, it was a show that treated kids like adults. Recess's starting point is a central cast of characters who represent different childhood archetypes, but it wasn't content just to have these etchings as characters, but instead went to great lengths to develop them and make them multifaceted. At a glance, our main characters all fit into established archetypes of kids' TV shows. TJ is the plucky leader, Vince, the star athlete, Gretchen, the child prodigy, Spinelli, the angry kid, Mikey, the gentle giant, and Gus, the nervous kid who is riddled with anxiety. But from the get-go, Recess was interested in expanding these characters from their existing archetypes to make them into more layered, three-dimensional characters. Whilst TJ may often be a paragon of wisdom and humility, see an episode like The C-Note, where he wants to return a $100 bill to its rightful owner, he's also someone who is often lazy and prone to jealousy. An episode like Space Cadet, in which the gang believe Gretchen might be going into space, shows that despite TJ's position as the moral voice in the group, he too is prone to exhibiting negative characteristics.
Just expressing my bitter, cynical opinion about the space program, that's all.
And this was true of all the characters as the series progressed. Vince, an inspiration to aspiring athletes to the school, was seen to succumb to arrogance from time to time and often have a fixation on his own popularity. Gretchen, whilst often shown to be perfect, is frequently portrayed as naive. Spinelli's aggression is often counterbalanced by a love of animals. Gus, whilst nervous, is capable of staggering feats of bravery. And Mikey, whilst emotionally intelligent, is often short-tempered and prone to emotional outbursts. Character development is, of course, fundamental to any successful TV show, but too often children's TV shows I grew up with were content to essentially give us the same characters every week, or if the characters did change, they'd be back to normal by the end of the episode and their exploits forgotten. But Recess was keen to embrace continuity and reward its audience for repeated viewing. See, for example, how the episode in which TJ hangs out with the Pale Kids, a group of children who choose to stay inside during recess.
We got our character names by spelling our real names backwards. So TJ, I guess your character name would be JT.
Is returned to later on in the series.
Hey guys!
Get on your bring line, JT!
Recess was full of these instances, from Mikey's repeated turns at singing after the episode The Voice.
Hey, JT, oh my God, Mikey could sing.
To Lawson and his crew recreating many of the gang's good deeds.
Have no fear, we know how to handle the library, kid! Oh.
The show was keen to show how its characters were growing and slowly changing across the series. Even the show's side characters were given this treatment, with nearly everyone on the playground given some sort of backstory or connection to the gang. See, for example, a character like Menlo, the office drone who lusts after Principal Prickly's assistant, Miss Lemon. He could just be a one-note anal creep. Instead, we learn that he used to be best friends with TJ, so much so that TJ still goes to his birthday party every year. Likewise, the kindergartners, initially portrayed as a homogenous mass, are slowly given individual personalities, such as Hector's reveration for Gus as safety man, or Tubby's connection with Mikey as his big brother. Recess respected its audience enough to avoid
I remember the Safety Man episodes. Oh my gosh, this is starting to bring back a flood of just like, because it's been so long since I've seen any of these shows, especially
giving any one-dimensional characters and refuse to trivialize their lives. In a sense,
but that theme song still rings in my head to this day.
Recess took school seriously. Its creators saw that to most children, school was the place that kids spent most of their time. To treat education as merely the backdrop to the show's comedy would be to suggest that it was something minor, something of limited significance, when the opposite was true to kids. To many children, school, recess, their classmates, that was their world. So Paul and Joe went the other way, treating all of the problems that their characters face with the utmost seriousness, and showing how school itself can often be seen as a microcosm for the adult world. One of Recess's best assets was its depiction of the playground as an ecosystem, complete with its own politics, laws, and codes of conduct. Recess in the show wasn't just a place for children to let off steam. It was a place where every kid and adult had their place in a delicate social order. Many of Recess's best conflicts were carved from a disruption to this so-called natural order of the playground.
This whole status quo.
In many ways, Recess's world adhered to a rigid class system. In an episode like Prince Randall or King Gus, King Bob, the appointed playground monarch, had his leadership compromised, which led him to defer responsibility to someone else. And in both instances, the playground was seen to enter into a state of disarray.
Henceforward, the game of kickball will no longer be called kickball. It will be called Gusball. Good morning, subjects. Good morning.
When Bob returned, the playground resumed a state of equilibrium, and the transgressors, Randall and Gus, resumed their positions in the ecosystem. Likewise, initially seemingly malevolent characters like Miss Finster or Principal Prickly were often revealed to be integral components to the balance of the playground. Episodes like The Hypnotist, in which Principal Prickly regressed to his childhood self, demonstrated
Oh shit, I actually do remember that. It was like he had dementia.
How as much as they were often oppositional forces to TJ and the gang, the teachers also had a vital role to play in the school ecosystem. The regression of Principal Prickly into a child causes the kids to face place far worse in terms of the school's leadership.
I'm taking over the school.
Any violation of the so-called natural order was a threat to the order of recess. Whilst this may seem like a conservative viewpoint, or rather an antiquated one advocating for a rigidly imposed class system, it's important to remember that recess was attempting to reflect, in an exaggerated sense, the reality of kids' school experience. For many children, cliques, popularity, and social groups are very real things. Whilst the way in which the show portrays Finster as a quasi-despot with her own secret police in the form of Randall may seem exaggerated, Finster is a very real depiction of how many kids felt about teachers. Creators Paul and Joe drew much of their inspiration from talking to their children about their experiences of school, as well as their children's friends, trying to get inside the heads of how the school system was viewed through the eyes of children. And Recess was extremely adept at capturing the various unwritten laws and codes that children often feel pressure to follow. Through its utilisation of the playground ecosystem, Recess took common rules which kids stick to and codified them in a set of laws which the characters were often led to battle against. In the show's second story, aired as part of the first episode, The New Kid, we see this represented through the character of Gus, who is introduced as a new kid at 3rd Street School, who TJ and the gang are asked to show around. Unbeknownst to Gus, the school has a tradition of ostracising new students, which he is subjected to upon revealing this fact to King Bob.
From now on, he will be known as the New Kid. The New Kid and nothing else.
The rest of the episode sees Gus unable to integrate into his new environment, facing segregation from his peers.
No new kids.
Miss Grokey.
He's the only new kid. That's crazy.
Here.
And even his parents.
Wow.
This episode perfectly captures the anxieties felt by children upon attending a new school. Fear of not knowing anyone, of not making friends, of feeling lost in an alien environment, and legitimises them through the school's codes of conduct. For many children, these were real fears.
Imagine you get bullied at school. Not only is the teacher joining, but you get home and your parents and then change you on all your shit too. That's crazy. That's crazy.
And through Gus's experiences, kids were able to see their own actualised and validated through the episode's hyperbolic new kid policy. Similarly, an episode like Jinxed showed how childhood games and superstitions can often govern a kid's behaviour. In the episode, Gus is jinxed by the Ashleys and spends the majority of the runtime of the episode unable to speak, and thus ends up in increasing trouble until he is about to be detained by the Board of Education. The reason for Gus taking this jinx so seriously? The kids' code of honour.
They're all part of the code.
It's what separates us from the animals.
In this sense, Recess tapped into something that many children face in their day-to-day, the unwritten rules of childhood that were not to be broken. The show's characters took their commitments seriously and all had a great sense of honour when it came to respecting the laws of the playground. To break these rules was to become like Randall, an outlier and undesirable, and Recess was exceptionally good at reflecting issues that adults may view as trivial, but that kids took
That's super bad, that what's his name, McLovin.
extremely seriously. It wasn't just through these laws and rules that Recess reflected the world of its audience, however, as it also engaged with real fears and anxieties that kids face as they begin to transition from childhood to adolescence. An episode like Bonky Fever, which shows Mikey engaging in a crisis of identity and reverting back to his kindergarten years, may be played for laughs for the majority of its runtime.
Bonky want pudding! Bonky want pudding!
But it also dealt with real issues, looking at how independence from your parents, as exciting as it may be on paper, can also cause separation anxiety.
Oh, honey, I'm not going anywhere. You're not? No, I'll be around.
Likewise, the episode A Career to Remember focused upon Spinelli's worries about deciding what she wants to be when she's older.
And I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life.
This was a 10-year-old worrying about the future. And whilst it may seem strange given that, as the episode points out, 10 is far too young to have decided upon your career,
Don't you think you're carrying a little too much stress for an elementary school kid?
the show never makes Spinelli's concerns seem trivial. As you see throughout the episode, the school itself is putting pressure on these children to see themselves as future adults.
We ask you to take time out from your little games, your laughter, your flights of fancy, and start worrying about the future for a change.
And this was a recurring theme across the series, the conflict between childhood and adulthood among kids at the cusp of adolescence. In episodes such as Shea Vince, where Vince becomes a chef, Gretchen and the Secrets of Yo-Yo, in which Gretchen discovers she may have a future as a professional yo-yoer, and Principal for a Day, in which TJ, as the title suggests, gets to be principal for the day. The kids were given a taste of adult life, at using their childhood to shape their future, and at each stage rejected it in favour of returning to Recess where they belonged. This is because Recess was never interested in teaching its viewers about the adult world, or incentivising them to grow up quicker than they needed to. Rather, Recess was about embracing childhood, about letting kids be kids and respecting that this stage in their life was just as critical as any other. In treating the experiences of its audience with emotional sophistication, Recess did what very few kids shows manage to do. It perfectly captured the experience of childhood, and I don't think any show has come closer to doing that than this. Thank you for watching another full fat video. Don't forget to click that subscribe button.
Right, full fat. Oh, that was super cool. Yeah, no, I even remember like a lot of the instances when they did like I think, what was it? There was this episode where the principal pretty much just had enough. I think it was either the principal had enough, or he either when they got like a new principal, something that like completely just locked shit down, and they like all revolted and everything again, and they were like, they had to have like, he had this whole speech about like how important it is for like, kids to be kids at this time or whatever, to have this time and yada yada, and like what it means to them and everything. If I remember correctly, like I remember it like pretty vaguely, but I think it might have even been the movie. But yeah, no, Recess, as well as like being entertaining, would always like pushing a decent message along about just like allowing a child to be a kid while also handling some heavier topics, because it was some wild stuff that they cover, like with Augustus' dad and everything being in the military and whatnot. They went into some like heavy topics and everything. So always good to see more of that. I might have to go back and check out some more of those episodes, since he said as viewing it as an adult, you can definitely view a lot more of the meanings behind some of the episodes. And like I said, it's been a while since I've seen any of Recess. So all right, well, thank you again, Full Fat Videos YouTube, and that coordinate.
All those unethical business practices, those shady backdoor deals I did, I know where the bodies are buried.